One second.
Okay, we're live.
Okay. Well, welcome to the September 22nd committee meeting, starting with the Finance Committee. Can we get a roll call?
Yes, sir. Frank Falciano,
Present?
Paul Anthony,
Here.
Robert Brooks,
Here.
John Hayes,
Here.
Ron Heckman, Larry Hemberger,
Present.
Mike Stershek.
Yo. Thank
We
you.
have one.
You're looking good. Thank you. So again, welcome everybody. Is there any public comment for this meeting?
No, sir.
No public comment. Check. Everybody received the minutes from August. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Mike?
Second.
Larry? All in favor? Aye.
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 And now to the financial statements. Mr. Kwan?
Oh, thank you.
Rock on.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Just as a heads up, we have John Kateski's on the line, and we're going to go over the pension after we go over the financial statement. You see John there, looking all important, like he's got good information. Yeah, like the light bulb's going off in the head. There you go. There you go.
I'm like taking off.
All right. So we always start off with the traffic. I think you heard me say last month that 90,000 is a good number for us as far as traffic. So we had 3 months in a row of 90,000 traffic. In the last 10 years, we've had 90,000 traffic in a month 6 times. 3 of them were this year, 2 of them were in 2019, and 1 was last year. So in the last 10 years, we've only eclipsed 90,000 6 times, and 3 of them were this year. So obviously, that means a good thing. And we've actually surpassed year-to-date traffic by a smidgen of 2019. We started off slow, but we've eventually passed 2019, and hopefully that trend will continue. Just to show us where we are, that we're slightly above there, that I kind of mentioned, a little bit more than 800 there, more as far as traffic. And we compare ourselves to other airports. Again, we start out with the throughput that's coming through the checkpoint, slightly below as far as seats and throughput, but considering the next slide, when you look at our peers, we're doing pretty good. This is through September 10th, and this is comparing 2019. So you can see where we are. Our numbers are, again, much better than our peer average. If you go down to Harrisburg, their throughput is down 21%. Seats are down 17. Scranton, minus 37 on the throughput and minus 39 on the seats. Then we look at the month of August. And this number, obviously, 1.5 is a big number, but we also collected some CARES this month. So without CARES, we're at 444,000. Again, a positive number. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But again, a lot of it's revenue up, net revenue up, and parking revenue, obviously reflective of the traffic. A good sign. Year to date, again, favorable on a lot of items as far as revenue, most important, but then overall operating expenses, and again, we'll dive into that a little bit more.
Did you have CARES money in the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually we were off by $67. So,
Okay.
yeah, let us slide, $67. That's the exact number we had in the budget, 67, let us slide for that, okay?
Yeah.
But thanks for checking on that for us. But again, as you look at that number there, without CARES, we're about $3 million. So you can see that, 3.082 without CARES. I did that backwards. And we had 2.7 of CARES reimbursement. So you can see on the budget there that, and I think I said this before, that we would be negative in our budget without CARES. So it's good that things have kind of improved, and we were really relying on that CARES as things have changed for us a lot faster. Good morning. How are you? I like the whole beard thing. It looks so sophisticated there. Then we kind of break down the full list. I took out my Paul's term, so we don't no longer have my accounting term. I took it out for him. But we got the full list here, but you can see CARES and parking make up 94% of our net income number there. So, 2 points. CARES is still the top number there. Parking is slightly behind, but you can see those two make up the bulk of our net income. Then you can kind of break down the large budgetary variances, salary and wages, again, our budget of integrity, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Revenue, obviously, aviation services, we're seeing an increase in that, but also an increase in our fuel charges, but on the revenue side, we're positive. Parking revenue, higher than what we budgeted as far as employments, which rolls into parking revenue. This is just breaking out the lines. Personnel, obviously, like I said, is a big part of that because we had such a big variance in FTEs. We budgeted, actually it was a year ago this time, I think we did it in August of last year, where we did our second budget amendment and we kind of rolled that in to the 2022 budget where we said, hey, we need a lot of people, let's kind of put them out there, and if we can get them as soon as possible. And that's kind of flowed into this year's budget. And you can see, non-personnel -7, but you can see over there for the month of August that variance is getting pretty tight. The three areas that, we're really focused on: utilities, maintenance and repairs, and materials and supplies. And some of that is just our internal cost of doing our business has went up. Fuel costs, all those things have went up that are starting to hit us, and utilities are really starting to hit us hard as well. And you can see where we talk about our FTEs. Our FTEs start to go down a little bit as far as what we budgeted. You can see they spiked up for June, July, and August. We have some seasonal folks just because we anticipate kind of a seasonal hit on our traffic. But we're at 91% for the month of August. You can see way back in January we're at 85. So we're getting there. It's just a slower process, but it seems to be improving. And this is just our cash flow. You can see on lines 9 and 10, those numbers are changing because of interest rates. Interest rates are up over 2%. We're paying interest only on those two loans, the connector loans, until next year. So you can see those numbers went up. We were about 2.7. We're up, not quite. We're up 4.6, something like that now. And that's before the Fed numbers yesterday went up, so you can anticipate these numbers going up again some more. And you can see there some of the things that changed. All the stuff in yellow is what's changed. And then we just kind of anticipating going into next year and some of the changes in our capital. Those numbers almost always change. We make our best guess on when we're going to put out capital expenditures and when we're going to get the grants, and it's our best guess. In the short term, we're usually pretty good, but as you go out further, it's our best guess. You can see that number there, number line 30, just kind of for our own cash flow purposes, bumping that number up again, anticipating that we're going to have a higher debt service because of interest rates going up when we finalize next year. So you can see that number went up over $10,000 a month that we anticipate right now, and that is, again, before the last 0.75% increase that we got yesterday. You can see down there, we're still at $59,000 a day for this year. This has a placeholder on line 33. We put in $65,000. We're still working on the 2023 budget, but just as a placeholder to kind of anticipate going forward. And then you can kind of see that black line there is 60 days cash on hand is kind of our minimum. Like, we don't want to go below 60 days cash on hand, but you can see right now we're anticipating staying above 200, even at 65,000 for the next 12 months. But obviously things change as we move forward. Any questions?
On the interest that we're paying interest only, will that all disappear when all the grants are paid out?
When you say when we're disappear, what do you mean?
Interest payments, the interest only payments.
On the connector, we have two connector loans.
Right.
We have the fixed one, that's the $15 million that we're drawing.
That's not going to disappear.
Right, but we're paying interest only on that, and then it matures, I believe it's July, June of next year, and then we got to roll it over into a fixed loan. The other loan is the grant anticipation loan. Again, we have, and that's mainly for the RACP that we have in there. So once we get the RACP money, we pay it back.
Okay.
But we haven't gotten it back. RACP is the slowest one
It's
of
the
all.
slowest of all.
So
Yeah,
that's
I know
why we
that.
have it. It's about 600 grand that we have out there. We wait probably 100 years for our RACP.
Paperwork takes forever to do, and it takes that process.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Todd, for that debt that's going to roll over next year into permanent financing, do we already have fixed rate agreed to, or are we floating and at the mercy of the market in terms of what rates will be next year?
We're floating in at the terms of the market next year.
Okay, is there any way we could take a look, and I'm not sure whether now's the right time or not, but with
Try it.
rates going up and now forecast to be up higher and longer than had been the case even a couple of months ago, if there's an opportunity to take a look at entering into a forward contract to lock that rate in now, we may want to take a look at it. I'm not saying we would want to do it, but I think it's worth exploring the option if it's there.
That's a great idea, John. I will check into it, and then I'll circle back with the committee next month.
Okay, sounds good, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Yes,
Do you have a breakdown of the open positions with the FTEs?
we do. I don't have them listed, but there's about, a lot of them are part-time. There's about, I think there's about 20, I think if we should go back to that slide, so that, back to the one we had. There, let's see. Right here. So there's about, if you go here, we're about 20 FTEs, which is right here.
Yep.
So right here.
I'm just wondering what the jobs are.
They vary. They vary a lot of them. We have some, we did have some FBO positions, they're open. We had some airline services positions, those are open. A lot of those are part-time. We have some skilled folks that we're looking for on our maintenance side. So I know we're looking for some electricians. That's one that we've been struggling with. You know, we'll talk to Paul, he'll take care of us. You know, but, you know, it's, I mean, I can get you a more detailed list, but it's a pretty, yeah, I mean,
On the
again,
website?
no, I mean, the positions are out there.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
posted,
they're posted out there,
but-
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not on one list, but all the positions are out on the website. for people to work.
I think the other concern is, you know, we talk about the airport and it's an experience. Like, is the airport impacted by not having those positions filled?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you are, but what about the experience for our flyers?
Customers. Yeah, and I think, you know, it's one of the things we talked about is, right, you know, the team really stepping up during these periods, and they've done a fantastic job. And the challenge is really the seasonality, as Todd points out. It's sometimes it's just having the staff to ramp up for the peaks. Some of these positions are positions that, you know, we're having challenges filling. Some are positions that we've filled. And unfortunately, you're not retaining people in this environment. People are moving on to the next. So, you know, it's sometimes we take a couple of steps ahead and then a couple of steps back with some of that. But, you know, I think it is the nature of what we're just all experiencing a little bit. And, you know, we're talking a lot about what we can do going forward. And I think we've made some progress for sure, as Todd points out here on the graph, but there's still more work to do.
What do we use to measure guest experience, satisfaction, et cetera?
Well, honestly, we haven't done a guest customer survey in a while, but I would say the one thing that we do is we have a lot of customer feedback options. So we do get a lot. Colin receives those electronically. And I will say, you know, from our perspective, and again, I can't speak for Delta, United, American, the rental car carriers, Dunkin' Donuts. I can't speak for all of the employers on the field, but I would say for our tenants, for the folks that we're handling, the feedback continues to be very positive. So that's sort of a measure that we get is all of the positive feedback we continue to get.
So maybe I should know this, but I'm not sure. Is those positions just here at this facility or Queen City and Braden also?
Couple part-time at Queen City.
Yeah, but most of the positions,
So we're also short at Queens, but they're included in that number.
but most of the positions are here.
Okay, so the openings are all three facilities.
Correct.
Okay.
I want to revisit something you said, you're having a problem retaining people, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people are quitting, you do any type of exit interviews and find out why they're leaving?
if they stick around to talk to us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I understand, like, there's
Yeah.
always that, right?
Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, honestly, it's such a competitive environment right now. Sometimes it's the difference of $1.
Right.
You know, sometimes it's work schedule. There's a lot of what we do here that requires in person, and it's a very service-based, you know, operation that we run, like in person, face to face. And there's a lot of folks who are looking for, you know, some telecommute options and work from home options, and that's very difficult to do with the business we operate.
And if you look in the breakdown of who's losing their jobs, it is mostly in the service industry. Those are toward the top of the list because people want to do, as Tom indicated, want to work remotely. So we can't really compete against that. You have to kind of be here. But we're doing everything we can. I think we just did a food truck. It was really positive. We do a lot of little things we can along the way to kind of make it a great place to work. It's just,
And say thank you. I mean, that's looking
it's
for
just,
ways to do that.
we do the best we can. It's just, you know, we know it's a challenge and we're competing against other folks, but we're doing our best. And again, a lot of it comes down to resources too, you know. I mean, we're not a pharmaceutical, so we don't have a ton of money, but we did the best we can. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I had a comment. Having some experience with this, one of the other problems that you face is that there's a lot of work at the beginning of the day, and there's a lot of work at the end of the day because of the way the flights are scheduled. And in between, there's nothing moving. And that's where you're finding people that have to be flexible and have the ability to either work a split shift, have an helper sit down with do a split shift, but things of that nature that allow that to fill the things in between. And we have a lot of people that are cross-utilized. Maybe we may need more part-time. But it is unique to the industry.
We're a pretty good mix. I think we have about 140, approximately 140 some full-time employees, and about 120 some part-time employees right now. So when you look at our count, it's a pretty good amount of part-time and full-time employees. We need that mix, as Larry indicated, just because of the way the work is. It's not as steady as you have in a lot of other places.
Anything else? Can I get a motion to accept the financial statements for presentation to the board? Paul?
So moved.
John? Okay.
And then from here, I don't know if I need the introduction or not, Frank. I know you like introducing it.
Tom's going to continue.
So Beth, can you pull up the pension update? I believe it's in there. Yes, that one. So John is on the phone. He's going to go through the first part of these slides. Just as kind of an FYI, we had a workshop on approximately 2 weeks ago with our internal folks to discuss some of the things that we've talked about in the committee level, targeting funds, lowering the rate of return, you know, a lot of things, but we wanted to make sure that folks internally had a chance to ask questions with some of our experts and really, you know, not just throw it on them, but make sure they could really understand a lot of the things we're doing to be good stewards of the plan. And we had John was one of the folks there. We had Chris Schuler, who's our representative from Mission Square. We had Peter, who's our actuary. So we had a lot of good questions. We had a representative. We expanded our group. We had a representative from each union and our non-union and our retirees. Plus we had it on stream so they could watch it, and we also recorded it so people could really dive into the information. So from that, I think I'll turn it over to John, and you can kind of get started there. I know you got that game face on. I don't want to mess it up there.
Yeah, can you guys, there it is, yeah. So, I mean, the presentation's broken down into 3 parts. You know, Todd, you know, said, 10, 15 minutes. So the 3 parts, we're going to spend 5 minutes on the market, 5 minutes maybe on the DB plan, and 5 minutes on the defined contribution plan. And this is a chart we show often. And if you look at the top left, those red bars, no matter where you were invested in the world, whether large caps in the U.S., Russell 2000, that's the smallest 2000, EFA's international emerging markets, This is as of June 30th, and why we picked June 30th is because that's kind of where the market is now. And no matter where you were globally, it's been a tough equity market. And if you go to the right, those gray bars, this is something that is different. Usually when we have seen a large decline in equities, we see, a moderate increase in fixed income, meaning positive returns. But it's this time that those lower interest rates, which cause bond prices to go down, is actually, in a way, driving the equity component. So, over the last 50 years, this is probably the worst return for a 60-40 portfolio. But if you look at the bottom, those numbers are the same asset classes that have that short-term, red numbers in them, and that's what it looks like over the 5 years ending June 30th. So they still are positive over the time period. It's just right now we are in somewhat of a trough. And as I always tell people, say you invest for 20 years. Of those 20 years, 17 of them are going to be positive and 3 of them are going to be negative. This just happens to be one of those time periods where we're negative. It's not that it's unexpected. It's just, it's just one of those time periods. And if you go to the next slide, I can't see it.
Perception is not always reality.
Yeah. Yeah, so the percent is that the consumer, there it is. Yeah, so this out of all the slides on the market, this is the one that we find internally the most interesting. So this is a consumer confidence, and it's a index that's been created from 1940 going forward, and it's based upon a survey to 500 people monthly. It's conducted by the University of Michigan. And what this chart is saying, the box is there, and this is what's fascinating. If you go to the bottom right there, the June 2020, it's 50. This is the lowest the low point that people have ever felt regarding sentiment in the market and the economy. And you can look at different time periods. I mean, people feel worse about the economy and the market today than they even did during the financial crisis in 08 and 09, which is just fascinating to me because in our world, at least, things aren't as bad, not even close to as bad as what they were in 2008 or 2009. But what's more important, if you look at that, go back to November 2008, that plus 22.2, that is what the market did 12 months after, making one of these troughs. So what we believe is this market is gearing up, for a rally. Yes, interest rates are going higher. Yes, we might be in a recession, but I think right now, that is being, highly discounted into the market. And believe it or not, as an investor, when you have negative sentiment like we are seeing, through indices like this, that historically has been, one of the best times to buy is when everybody else, especially the retail investor, is selling. So, we are in a trough in terms of consumer sentiment, maybe one of the lowest at all times, but I do think it's setting up for a rally, maybe a multi-year rally. Next slide. And this is part of the reason why we don't think things are going to get bad. If you look, and it's amazing, the 2 or 3 items that you just talked about in your finance, report is exactly what everybody's dealing with. So if you look at the blue line, and this is as of August 31st, there is currently 11 million job openings out there. If you look at the green line, there's 6 million unemployed. So right now there is basically almost 2 jobs available, for everyone that's looking for one. And we have never gone into a deep recession when everybody is working that wants to work. Sure, they might not have the job that they want, but jobs are out there. And strangely, as the Fed is trying to slow down the economy, unemployment, like we are at one of the historic lows in unemployment. Do I think that's going to change over the next 12 months? Yes. And the pendulum's going to swing back to where it's an employer market, but right now it's definitely an employee market. Go to the next slide. This is just something that ties into what Todd was just saying is, we just look at, in terms of strength of the economy, we look at leisure, and because usually that's one of the first things that goes whenever people, start slowing their spending. And this is a chart, if you look at the red line, this is through the beginning of August. Air traffic travel through this data is actually higher than what it was during 2019 or 2021. It's actually, according to this measure, actually at an all-time high. Are we going to stay there? I don't know. But if you look at the green line, that's, back in March and April of 2020, that was a drop-off during COVID, and that the green line represents 2020. So the consumer right now is not contracting their spending because usually, as you guys know more than anyone, it's the leisure travel that would drop off. So it's, like I said, with everybody working that wants to work and people still spending, the economy is hanging in there. I think we have one last one on the markets here. Next slide. Okay, yeah, so we'll get into the DB plans. So the next page, this is an executive summary. You can read it at your leisure. The big point is probably that first one. Over the last 10 years, even with this recent sell-off, the plans are averaging 7.1 per year. Up until this sell-off, that number was above 7.5, but just with the current market demand dynamics, it has dropped. For 2021, the plan, ranked against other municipalities, where you were in the top 40 percentile, which is where we try to keep you. Everything's fully invested at all times. There's not market timing going on there. Over half the plan assets are indexed. That is for performance and cost, and most of the plan fees come directly from the plan assets. And overall, the plan's being run at 0.3, 0.4% of the total assets, which is a pretty, in our opinion, pretty attractive fee. Go to the next one. This gets into the individual. Well, okay, so this is something we talked about during the workshop. And the idea is, and this is the foundation, I think, of what the authority's doing, is, focus on the factors that we can control, which is on the left page, and, don't, try to control things that we can't control. What we can control on the left is, the objectives, the amount of risk in the portfolio, the types of investments, solid service provider, attractive fees, and probably the last one is just, having good emotions and being disciplined when the market's down. That center column, you can't control it. You just got to acknowledge it and act around it. You don't try to market time, and when you put those two together, that's what gets your investment results. And so right now, if you go to the next page, this is just some of the current cash flows of the plan. If you look at the fourth line down, that's the market value for each plan as of August 31st. So $7.2 million for the union plan, $8.6 million for the non-union plan. If you look down at 2022, the year-to-date contributions, that is what the authority has contributed year-to-date relative to last year. Remember that 2021 number takes into consideration 12 months. And I don't think, maybe Todd would correct, I don't think we did it last year, but usually in those contributions, the authority does make an additional contribution above and beyond what the minimum obligation is, and that has helped the funding status. If you can see in the top chart there, 116 for the union plan and 110 for the non-union. But those numbers are going to change, and Todd's going to talk a little bit about that at the end. Next slide. So this is the asset allocation within the plans. They're run identical. The third column is the target per the investment policy statement. The first two, the union, non-union, that's where the plans were as of August 31st. There always is a little bit of cash just because of checks going out, pension checks going out, or cash contributions coming in, but they're fully invested. They're right on top of the target, give or take 0.5%. Next slide. So this is the performance of the two plans. Year to date, you can see the plan's down 14.3% after net of fee. And then, look at the longer term number, that has that negative 14.3 year to date embedded into it. So on average per year for the last 10 years, the plan has been making 7.1%. So, I mean, it's a bumpy market, but like I said, I think brighter days are ahead of us. And that year-to-date number, as we talked earlier, is because we didn't get any benefit from owning fixed income in here. Usually, like I said, fixed income or bonds rally in this environment, but they're not. And the only thing that really has made money out there are alternatives, which is mostly the commodity and energy, and that's being driven by what's going on in Russia. And I'm sure you guys are seeing it in terms of higher jet fuel. So next one. This is something we talked about at the workshop. So in the upper left, even though it looks like they're the same type of numbers, they're not. So in the upper left is the allocation. So how much money are we going to put into each bucket? And that's what is written in the investment policy statement that was agreed upon by the committee, and that's how the portfolio is built out. The top one on the right, that is the 20-year expected return. Large cap equities, 10.1, small value, 11.3, small growth, 10.1. That's the expected return over the next 20 years. The number that has kind of crept up is the fixed income, just because rates have popped up. Fixed income is more attractive today than it has been in the last 10 years. And what that bottom is saying is once you put how much money you're going to put into each bucket, the expected return, and then that's why that asset allocation is, because it will give the plan an expected return of roughly 7.96. That's before fees, and the actuarial rate that is written into the plan is 7.5 that the actuary uses. So just large cap, just to solidify the point, is 40% of the money is in large cap. It is expected to do about 10% a year. So the weighted return would be 4.04%. And remember, those expected returns, like some years are going to do 30, some years are going to be negative, 15, negative 20. But over time, that's what those numbers, are projected to do and have done over the very long time, 40, 50, 60. Next page. This gets into the defined contributions. And as a reminder, the plan about 2.5 years ago, I think we actually converted during COVID. It moved from Mass Mutual into Mission Square. Mission Square has a big presence in the municipal side. Another thing that was very attractive is that they have a participant representative that provides nothing but education. He comes out. He's been real active. He actually was at the workshop a couple weeks ago. And you can see, the balances of the plans, when the plans were created. And, going forward, especially with new employees, these are a big portion of their retirement. So the next one. Yeah, so, and this is kind of how the funds are being used. And this shows how the participant education is working. The plan that was in place through Mass Mutual, the average employee only had, roughly were using less than 2 funds. There were 40 available. They were different funds and different plans, and less than 2 were being used. And now all 3 plans, the 457, the 401A, union, non-union, they all have the same funds, so people aren't confused. Hey, if I'm in, my money in the 457, I can, historically they would have to vest it one way because it wasn't the same options. 401A was different. And now you can see people are starting to spread their money out and, use the various buckets. And right now, the QDIA, the Qualified Default Investment Option, is that conservative fund that is highlighted in yellow. But through the workshop and the commentary from the March meeting, the board meeting, there was a discussion to add target date funds. And I believe, upon discussion today, I think the recommendation, from the workshop is that it would be a positive response to add some target date funds. And Todd, maybe you want to talk a little bit about that.
I guess that's my cue to jump in, right? Okay. So one of the things we wanted to break down, and I think this is kind of in line with what we talked about, is this is the percentage invested in the default investment. So if you go, and I went back to 2018 when we were with Mass Mutual. So at that point, the conservative, the stable value fund was the default plan. So we had 40% of the 457 was in the stable value fund, which again was the default fund at that point. And overall it was 44%. Then you go right before we made the switch, because the last time we switched, I believe, from Mass Mutual to Mission Square. We did that, it was, I think, like the fourth quarter, the beginning of the fourth quarter of 2020. And this was kind of the last kind of valuation with Mass Mutual before we switched over. And you can see that that number went up because, it went up to 62% overall of people in that stable value fund. Again, so then we went over to ICMA, and then a year ago, or 8/31 of last year, we had 43% in the stable value, and that 7% is as a conservative growth. So that is now the default plan. So you see what that 7% is there. That is the new default plan. And then you can see as of 8/31/2022, we had 43% again and 8% in the conservative fund. It's important to note that the reason it went down from 62 down to 43 is because of the employee education, and we had that kind of awareness. And we talked about Chris coming out. He meets with each individual individually. So that's the best way to do it. And the other thing, when we talk about moving that needle, is about 40% of the money that we have in the defined contributions are for people that aren't even here anymore. So, they're retirees or people, they left their money here. So a lot of that, we're going to try to reach out to them as well. But, it's hard for us to move that needle if they're not here anymore. So even when we make the adjustment going forward, and that's what we're recommending, we're going to, that's what we're going to move forward, is we're going to make the target date funds the default plan at the beginning of the year. Once we go through it, we're going to figure out which target ones we're going to use. We're going to look at a few of them. Vanguard, I know ICMA has a few, Fidelity, which ones we're going to use. And that'll be the default fund, and it'll be based on your age, it'll go in there. But that'll only be for new money. So in order to move the existing money, that's going to be employee education, because, yes.
What's the percentage of employee versus retirees in assets? Any idea?
In assets, like I said, it's about 40% of the money is in people that are no longer here anymore. So again, it's in some people might say, well, why don't you move the existing folks? That's a lot of liability. If somebody specifically moved that money, they have to say, hey, I want to move that money. Now, for a new person that doesn't make a choice, it goes into the target date fund. But that's why we're really big on the employee education, because that's the best way for people to make those adjustments and moving forward. Okay. And this is just kind of looking at some of the things we're talking about. So one of the things that we talked about to be good stewards of the plan is to use the updated mortality table. So the actuarial tables were based on 2000, year 2000, and then they projected forward. There's new actuarial tables that are based on 2010 and projected forward. And they actually show that people are living longer. So that's the tables that we want to use. And we also want to move the assumed rate of return from 7.5 to 7.25. And these changes will impact, they'll be effective for the 1/1/23 valuation. So they would affect our MMO in 2024 and beyond. But we do these evaluations, the formal evaluations are done every 2 years. So the last time we did one was in 1/1/17. We did it in 17. That was the last time we did a change of the assumed rate of return. So it was 8% in prior to 17, and we changed it to 7.5. Now, what happens when you change it from 7.5? There has to be a 3% spread. So you also change the assumed salary assumption. So whenever you're doing this is an estimate. So they say 7.5%, and then there's a 3% spread. So that assumes what employees' average increase will be when they retire. So it was, like I said, when it was 8, it was 5% on the salaries. Then we went down to 7.5, it was 4.5 on the salary returns. Now we're going to 7.25, it'll be 4.25 on the salary returns. But I think John indicated at the end of 2021, we were 112% funded at 7.5% return. Based on the market value, you can actually see that. So at the end of 21, we had almost 19 million in pension assets. You see that green one at the top? At the very top, both plans, see that? 18,773. Now, as of 8/31, we're down to a little less than 16 million because of what's going on in the market. So obviously that means your funding went down. But you can see what happens. That's at 17.5. If you add in the adjustment for the mortality tables, which is the biggest adjustment of approximately 5%, that's how much it increases. And then another 2% for that 7.25. Our estimated funding level as of 8/31, and this is an estimate, is 84%. So we went from 112 down to 84%. But again, these are estimates, and we're trying to be good stewards of the plan. And I think one of the things we're all trying to do is leave a legacy where you lower these levels to a number that we're comfortable with and that is sustainable. And what happens is when you lower these numbers, they never go back up. So we're at 8, and you rarely go back up. Rarely do folks, we asked Peter that question, when you lower that rate of return, does anybody turn around and go, hey, I was at 7, can I go to 7.5? It never goes the other way. So we're very systematic. And we will look at it again prior to the 1/1/25 valuation. But we wanted to do this in advance of that valuation because that's important. That's it. And then I'll go to the other slide.
Has your assumption then always been 7.5 or higher? If it never goes up, that's all.
Well, the assumption is based on the liability. What you earn is what you earn. So when Peter does the liability, Peter's our actuary, he just says, all right, I got to estimate what the person's going to earn when they're age 65, because it's based on, I got to estimate what they're going to make. I got to estimate how much I'm going to earn in return, and because it's a defined benefit. So it says, I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money. So it's got to be all based on estimate. Everyone receives on their statements now, when they get them, kind of an accrued value. That's what it is right now. That's carved in stone. Then there's kind of a projected number, if you work here to 65, what that number is. It's based on some estimates. That's what these are based on what those estimates are. So by lowering it, we're making the estimates a little bit more conservative. So again, you're just trying to be as good a stewards of the plan as you can. Back on the other MMO there, the other MMO. I want to put that other one up before we do our voting on the approvals. Talk about the MMO. This is some of the stuff we talked about at our workshop. This is the MMO, and for people that don't speak actuary, that's minimum municipal obligation, and that ties in to what we have to pay to fund our pension based on our funding level. So, like I said, so our funding for our MMO was based on our 1/1/21 valuation. So we did a valuation on 1/1/21, and that's what you use to determine your 2022 and your 2023 MMO. And your MMO is your minimum number, and it's based on your funding level. So what happens is, if you're overfunded, you can actually get a credit because it's trying to get you back to 100%. It actually reduces your liability. If you're underfunded, it actually adds in more to get you there. So it kind of assumes that you're going to get back to 100% funded over a 10-year period. So there's an amortization. So if 84, what will happen is they're going to add in something that says you got to get back. There's a surcharge because you got to get back to 100. The goal is to get to 100. So when you're over 100, it's going to give you a decrease. If you're under 100, it's going to give you an add-on. So this you can see here, so kind of what John was saying for last year, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, but for this year, we're at 264. You can see all the way down the end, it's the 593 on the MMO. First two numbers are the defined contribution numbers, defined benefit numbers, 265, 163, and then next to that is the extra contributions. We made extra contributions last year, and this year, this is 2022, and also we're anticipating doing them for 2023. Now, once we go to the 7.25, some of that's already going to be built into the number. We don't have to do that. But that's kind of what we're doing, and because we were making extra contributions, we've also made extra contributions to the defined contributions for the employees that are in that plan. So the employees, instead of getting 6%, got 8% for the last year, and then also for next year. That's what we have in there. And that one there where it says employee contributions, the Teamsters do have, because they continue to have new folks going into the defined benefit plan, and they're the only group, those employees are paying a percentage of their salary into the pension plan. And this is just kind of looking at it over the years. You can kind of see there a total contribution, including the extra contributions there. For 2023, we're talking 847,000. We're at 801 this year. You can see we're trying to keep it in that 800 level, even though we don't have to make these extra contributions. Again, it's about being a good steward of these plans. But you can see we tried to keep it consistent since 2019. You can see that we had that big dip, big spike in 2018. We were up $1 million. We almost went up double from what we were in 17. So you can kind of see what happened. And that is, some of that was reflective, as I said. We did the 1-1. We adjusted that pension valuation 1-1-17. That would have affected the 18 and the 19 MMO. So that's a big reason why those numbers went up from 17 to 18 as well. But you can see, we'll go back there one more. You can see that, compared to where we were in 2016, we're well over double that amount now that we're paying in those MMO and that leverage going forward. And this is the letter that Tom does. It just kind of says the minimum obligation letter. That's something the board has to vote on every September. And we just want to make sure we do that in compliance of Act 205 to make sure that we do this by the end of the month. And this is something we're actually going to vote on. So I know we covered a lot of information. I know John's still on the line. Any questions? I know it's a lot, but the bottom line is we're really trying to be good stewards of the plan. We continue to do that. This adjustment going from 7.5 down to 7.25. We've been funding at that level anyway. So it's just kind of consistently want to do it more of a hard line, doing it going forward. I don't know what else there. Any other comments you want to chime in there on, John or John? Because they're both online there.
John Hayes used to have an issue with that 7.5%. I'm wondering how he's feeling about the 7.25.
I was going to wait for everybody else to. Mike, since you teed me up, I'll go ahead and jump in on it. This is for those who've been on the board with me for now 7 or 8 years. This has been a pet issue of mine. I've seen the damage that underfunded pension plans can do to organizations, governmental agencies, local governments. Matt's 2 predecessors ago had a severely underfunded plan in Allentown, as an example. Pennsylvania State, if they ever got honest, has a significant underfunded liability, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. Todd makes a good point a couple of seconds ago. We have been on a voluntary basis funding to a level with more realistic assumptions, which I think is a great thing. I think 7.5 is too high. I understand the thought processes behind our asset allocation and the hope that we can hit an 8% return over the next 10 years. I would be surprised if we hit something that high. I think even 7.25 is probably still a little bit higher than it should be, but it is significantly more realistic. The mortality rates are what they are, and people are living longer. That's a good thing, and we've got to make sure that we factor that in. But we've been funding at those levels on a voluntary basis. And we've got a good board in place, a good management team in place that's been doing that now for several years. And even with the down market that we've had, we've still got a plan that is significantly better funded than a lot of other plans out there. This move keeps it that way, and it locks us in that regard, and I think it's the right thing to do. One of the most important responsibilities we have as a board is to make sure that we leave things in terms of our commitments to our employees in better shape than when we joined the board. And I think this is a good step to make sure that we continue to have a very healthy pension plan that can honor our commitments without requiring a fire drill for those that will succeed us at some point on this board. So I am enthusiastically in favor of these changes, and I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, that would be you, Frank.
Yes, so we have a motion and a second.
Right. So we have two motions. We have the motion to approve the MMO
Yes.
as stated, and then also to change the rate of return from 7.5 to 7.25 and the salary assumptions as well. And then also using the updated mortality tables. They're kind of all the actuarial.
We only do one at a time.
Okay.
So this is the first one.
We'll do one at a time. Okay. MMO. How about we do MMO first?
MMO, do I have a motion? That was the motion from John, the second from Mike, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And then
7.25.
to change to 7.25, do I get a motion for that? I'm gonna give that to
So
John.
move. Yeah, thank you, Frank.
And Paul's the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then the mortality tables, the updated mortality tables from 2000 to 2010. All in favor of that? You want to take a vote on that as well?
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Mike for the mortality tables is making the motion. Do I got a second?
I feel like the
I'll second.
John second. And all in favor of that one, so that was three things.
Yeah, we got three, all of them in
All
one.
in favor of
They're
that
all
one?
included under the
Aye.
approval of pension actuarial changes. That's kind of all together there. All right, thank you.
All right, any discussion? Any new or old business?
Thanks, John. Appreciate
thank
all
you
your
very
work
much.
there.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys. Much appreciated. Yep.
With no business, then a motion to adjourn this committee meeting. Mike's motion, Larry's second. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
Move right into it. All right, welcome to the September 22nd Business Committee of the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. We have a roll call, please.
Justin Grimshaw,
Here.
Dawn Gottschall. I think I saw her.
Here, sorry, yep, I'm here.
James Irwin.
Here.
Jeff Matskin, Glenn Reedman,
Present.
Chris Worley, Tara Zransky. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there any public comment?
No, sir.
All right, everybody should have got the minutes. Can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Dawn and Glenn? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? All right, that was our action items. We'll move into discussion, marketing update. I'm guessing Darren brought in somebody else today, because.
Yeah, I'll kick it off quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
No,
Darren. Like 5 seconds from me. Perfect. Turn over the person that knows what she's talking about anyhow. So, no, I just want to, Alexia is going to walk you through most of this, but just prior to that, I wanted to just say a couple things. Toward the end of last year, Megan, our marketing manager, left, and Alexa jumped in, and I think at this point, really has done a fantastic job, and we're really happy where we're at now. So Megan helped us a lot with our planning for this year, but now we're doing next year's planning, so it's kind of our first time for Alexa working on budget and planning. So we're working on a little more detailed marketing plan that we're gonna share with you all probably in January when we do our next update, so I think you'll be able to see things a little better. But for now, we're gonna walk through some of the things we've done and what we're doing through the end of the year, just a little bit about where we're starting, looking at towards the beginning of next year as well. So with that, I'm gonna get out of the way now and let Alexa jump up here, so.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me back. I just wanted to talk about some of our fall and holiday marketing that we've been working on. We're still working on the Get There Faster campaign. We just wanted to keep reiterating the fact that having a local airport is a very important fact, is a very important thing to have in your area because you can get anywhere faster pretty much that we fly to direct or connecting. So we did update our holiday ads, get to your family faster, get to your holiday faster, get to the beach faster, and get to midnight faster, which is a little different from last year, but still pretty similar. There's only so much you can do with the holiday time. Then we have the bottom two ads, which we will be putting in parking garages in Bethlehem. We did this during Music Fest, and it went over really well. We have about 7 spots total in each parking garage, and we figure the holiday season is a very big time in the Lehigh Valley because we're the Christmas city. And then the 2 ads up on the top left, those are going to be billboards on 22, one going east and one coming west. So it just shows how far the drive is to get to Florida from here and how fast the drive is to get to the airport. And we think that really just puts the hammer on the nail for the fact that you can get there faster. So I didn't know there were sounds, sorry. So we're starting 2 new marketing platforms. One is actually a new platform in general, and then the other one is TikTok. Since we've had a hard time reaching the Colby audience, which is one of our personas, which is the millennial persona, we decided to take a step back from just doing Instagram, Facebook, and Google, and we wanted to try and reach a new audience for TikTok. And so far, we haven't put a lot of push towards it, but we've gotten a lot of click-throughs for it, and that's a good sign, so we're going to start pushing it a little heavier. Still in the test period, so I'll have more information to go over in January. So that you can play them, then these are the ads that are running on TikTok. And then the next platform is Performance Max. It's pretty new in general. It's kind of off of Google Ads. They're trying to expand their reach. So instead of just having your ads be on display ads when you Google search something, they direct the ads towards the audience that you're looking to reach specifically. So on any of their platforms, it goes to YouTube, their display ads still, so it'll just be on top of what we're already doing with Google, on search, Discover, and Gmail. So far, they've seen a positive impact from other companies, so we haven't started our testing yet for this, but we're planning on starting that in October. And then these are just a few things that we're doing, what's going on here. So we're the title sponsor for Oktoberfest. We think it's really important to be out in the community and sponsor events like this. We already sponsor the Phantoms and the Iron Pigs. So we're doing something with Bethlehem. We've been doing this, I think, the last 4 years. And we've gotten really good feedback from it. I know we used to do Music Fest, but for us to get as much exposure from that as opposed to doing this, it's not comparable. Our signage is everywhere. We're on all of their social media posts, e-blasts, anything that they put out. And second you walk in, you see, welcome aboard. Last year, they had an estimated 42,000 people show up to Oktoberfest, which is 40% more than 2019. And they are expecting to have more because they're bringing back the 5K, they're bringing back the beer garden, and they have more of the drag shows that they're bringing in, which was a really big thing for them last year. And then this summer, we brought back music in the airport. After the mask mandate was lifted, this is something that the passengers really enjoy, as well as the local musicians. We had 2 returning performers, Kendall Conrad and Kenzie Lynn, with the addition of 3 more performers that are starting to circle in the rotation. So these are just a few things that we have going on now. Oh, sorry. And then upcoming, we're working on updating the new website. Our website currently is a little outdated. It's about 10 years old, and it is recommended that we update the website 4 to 6 years. So this is kind of something that is ready to happen. It's definitely going to be more mobile friendly. It's going to have better navigation, and on the homepage, it'll show you instant access to TSA wait times, your flight status, and the parking status. We met with every department in the authority to kind of get their feedback on what everybody thought the current website needed and how we could adjust and fix it, as well as getting feedback from the public, because we have had some responses on our website now as to finding things. So navigation is definitely a big thing for us, as well as being mobile friendly, because over 50% of our traffic on the website is coming from mobile. Do you guys have any questions about this or anything that's going on? No? All right, well, thank you for having me. I'll see you in January.
Move right along to the capital projects, Ryan.
Buddy? All right, so a few updates on our projects, nothing too extensive, but obviously good things to cover. In terms of our runway program, we're getting close to the winter shutdown timeframe. We're really seeing some of the slides coming up. We're really focusing on cleaning up a lot of the punch list items for packages 2 and 3, and then finishing package 4 next year and really starting package 5, which was the grant we just approved last month, next year. But you see the light blue is what's substantially been completed. Some of the active construction areas currently where they're working on the north side and the taxiway Echo North, which we'll get to here in a minute. You mentioned before package 1, which is a 2018 grant. The closeout package was submitted. The FAA is reviewing it. I may have mentioned this last month, but the last 10% of a grant amount you can't request from the FAA until you submit the closeout package. So this one is critical because the final request or draw will be all $1.7 million. So it's important to get the closeout in as soon as the work is done. So we're waiting on that. This package 2, the closeout's in progress. So the last piece of work that was completed was the PAPIs, the precision approach path indicator lights. The flight check was successfully completed earlier this month. And then again, working on the grant closeout process. In terms of the number, that final draw might be a bit more than 1.7, but that's what we're kind of working through, the final quantity adjustments and numbers from the contract. So package 3, as I mentioned, we're trying to wrap up this concrete swale that you see there. Final markings are scheduled for the entire runway near the end of the month. Once that's complete, we can then work on the closeout for that as well. Package 4, as I mentioned, we're trying to finish this year as at least portions of taxiway Echo North, South, and taxiway Echo, or taxiway Alpha was completed. And again, just trying to get what we can done before the winter taxiway Echo North Next year for package 4 will be this taxiway Gulf relocation or Alpha 3 and finalizing the pavement stabilization for taxiway Hillsborough North. Package 5, as I mentioned, so working through the submittals currently. Since our last board meeting, we did get the grant documentation, so that's all signed and executed. And again, looking to hit that hard in the spring of next year, which again is the shoulder work and some of the infield areas we talked about before. So moving on to Queen City. This grant is really the design. The pavement rehab has been done. The design is currently for the lighting, which we're looking to apply for a grant for next spring. So not much has changed there. The construction for 1533, notice of award was sent out, just reviewing the items from the contractor. Again, looking to start that work in the spring rather than starting it for about a month, letting it sit and picking up for next year. So we're just going to start it all in the spring for next year. And moving on to Braden, we did receive the certificate of occupancy from the township. We're currently coordinating with the operator to start utilizing the space, kind of like a soft opening, so to speak. I may have mentioned this last month, but PennDOT did complete their final inspection, and because of that, we're able to submit for the remainder of the grant funding, which was at $325,000. So we're just waiting on that final $160,000 or so. And then in terms of some of the remaining elements, it's really the front and rear awning, working with the timing on the contractor for that, and then looking at putting in a flagpole as well. So more to come on that, but the majority of the building is complete, which we're happy to see. And again, the update table where we are, nothing major. You'll kind of see total project costs and what we spent to date for the runway. It's getting close to finished for those. Any questions on these?
Ryan, this may be an unfair question, but given the fortuitous time that we started these projects, how much more would they be if we were just starting them now?
20%. Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot higher.
Yeah. I just want everybody to realize that. Now, some of that, frankly, was luck, but we have avoided an awful lot of increased expenses associated with these projects.
Agreed. Yeah, and to that point, even probably next month when we talk about some of our budget projects, that's kind of some of the thought process in terms of getting us prepared for when it makes sense to really start construction on a project. So, yeah, that's a good point.
Brian, is there any thought of extending the runway out of Queen City anymore, or is that project kind of faded?
Yeah, when we did, you can jump in too, Tom. Sure. When we did the master plan back, when was that, 2019 now? We did look at that. The issue really is the safety areas on the end and getting that length required. So even if, to add that, I think it was 50 feet. Yeah. The financial piece, as well as the safety area, was really the pinch point.
Yeah, it really wasn't a feasible project. The FAA didn't ultimately approve that on the ALP, on the airport layout plan.
Yeah, because the length that it is now, I know there was some discussion before, but the length that it's at now can accommodate the current traffic that's there, and getting that additional 50 feet wouldn't get you additional mix or an additional type of aircraft. So that was ultimately part of it. No, good question. All right, so moving on to the fun one, the security checkpoint. So since last month, quite a few things have been completed. I'll kind of run through them, but you can see what's been completed since we talked last. Some of the ongoing that we're doing, you'll see some of that walker duct, which is the channel that the TSA equipment cabling will be in under the concrete floor, putting that in. Again, you'll see the drywall continuing, the duct work. Exterior metal panel siding is continuing to move forward. Again, the electrical conduits, and then the restrooms have moved on pretty well. They've actually put in most of the terrazzo, working on some of the countertop fixtures and partitions. Again, some of the upcoming work continuing. What you see there, escalators and elevators is going to be the big one probably next month. And then hopefully next month in the connector itself, the terrazzo will start to get installed, so we'll start to see that, which will really get the space coming together. Again, you can kind of see the siding going up. The plastic has helped us continue to work in, but obviously, with weather like today has presented some challenges, to be fully enclosed. We're working with the contractor to make sure that anything that does get impacted is taken care of. You can actually see they started some of that darker gray paneling on the bottom. And if you remember from some of the renderings, it actually kind of comes up this way. So again, it'll be nice to see that fully coming together. Again, the vertical circulation core, getting a lot of that siding done. You'll see actually some of that Wiley expansion piece where the new elevators are going has also been poured. That glass wall has actually since been removed as of last week, which is connecting into Wiley in that old storage room. So they're working on that currently as well. Again, see some of the ductwork, conduits.
Thank you.
Yep, it's in there. The elevator pits, as well as some of the siding that's going to go up on there. The waterproofing above the tunnel, even though it's an enclosed space, wanted to make sure that was taken care of. Again, you can see some of that curved wall on the inside. From the top of the stairs looking down, you kind of see in the back they're starting to set up that walker duct, and that's basically what that is. TSA was actually out here, I think 2 weeks ago, looking at that, making some adjustments based on the plans they provided us and some updates that they had, so working through that, as well as some other items that we've been looking at. Okay, that's squared away again, some more pictures of the panels. These are the stairs going down into the tunnel. I think last month we were still pouring the concrete in that lower level, so that's been completed. Again, another view of the stairs that have been put in. And then here's a shot of the bathroom where they are, tiles up, grounded. The terrazzo is in, but they have to grind it down to polish it, so it's not quite there yet, but more to come. Again, where we are, really working on the vertical circulation core is really the biggest piece right now. So where we are, you can kind of see about 58% where we were last month, still tracking very well with timing on those. Again, same thing, really working on that building shell, fully enclosing the building, then trying to determine if we do what we can this fall in terms of the site work, or if we save that for the spring, kind of depending on how much they get around the building shell itself. And then obviously the elevators and escalators are the next big piece. And then as before, phase 3 is still kind of stayed the same. In terms of where we are, you'll kind of see schedule-wise, still working with TSA. You get the equipment here in November. I think I mentioned a few meetings back that we did get a phone call from the state about some additional multimodal funding. We get so many of these. Tom reminded me that we did get the tentative allocation letter this past month. That's that PennDOT multimodal at 1.46. So in terms of our total grant funding now, we're about 18.3 million. We still have about 600,000 out there, but you'll see with everything we have, all of our eligible costs are about 93% grant funded, which is fantastic. And you'll see again where the numbers are, where we're tracking, what we spent to date. As Todd showed his cash flow, we did have a bank reimbursement this past month, which helps us out. So I believe that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, the only one is the milestones, because we're on schedule right now, so the milestones, I think they'll be met. TSA delivering equipment, escalators, we're looking good.
At this point, yeah. We've had a lot of conversations with the vendors and the contractors about the timing and making sure there aren't any issues there. We actually are going to start having weekly or bi-weekly TSA calls instead of monthly, since we're getting close down to the wire.
Good.
And I also will throw out, I know we had a tour through the construction space a little bit ago with the board, but at the end of the October board meeting, we're going to do the same. So for folks who weren't able to attend or want to see the update, you can bring some comfortable shoes for the October board meeting, and we'll take a walk through and kind of get another tour if people are interested in it.
Any other questions for Ryan? All right, thank you, Ryan.
Great, thank you.
Any new business? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
Okay, do we need, does anybody need to take a break before we jump into exec, or are we good to roll right into it?
I think we can keep rolling, John.
Okay, sounds good. Then we'll go ahead and call the September 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Executive Committee to order. Sylvette, could you call the roll, please?
John Hayes,
Here.
Glenn Reedman,
Present.
Justin Grimshaw,
Here.
Mike Stershik,
Here.
Tara Zirinsky, Matt Turk. We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Sylvette. Any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of August 25, 2022. I'd entertain a motion to that effect.
Motion.
So moved. Do I have a second? I think I heard a second in there.
Yes.
Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is the approval of the Florio Perucci bill. Entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now on to the discussion items. Connie, you're up. Commercial services update.
All right, thank you, John.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. I'm always excited to share what we're up to in commercial services. Well, if you don't know already, we have provided the ground handling for Legionnaire since 2005. In fact, Larry, you'll remember very well. I used to report to Larry. So part of our ground handling for Allegiant is we provide the customer processing, baggage service, baggage handling, de-icing, aircraft cleaning, commissary, security, and servicing. And we also handle Harrah's, Caesar's charters, throughout the year. I think we'll have 6 this year. They go to fun destinations like Reno, and we typically work with Sun Country on those charters. Okay, we had a really busy summer. Our peak season, June through August, this past summer, we processed almost 156,000 passengers. And this is just in the ground handling department. This isn't the overall passenger counts that Todd shares. But so I believe that is a record, and 18% above our second highest year, which was last year. So some of the changes we have to make is we do have employees trained in different departments just for call-offs, just to always have a contingency plan. And I know Dawn can vouch for me that I will also go out and help, work the flights just to keep our service up.
Amen. You
Amen.
can do that.
Thank you, Dawn. So I always laugh and say, I'm the scanner out there when you're leaving, so I'll be the last person that you see sometimes. But yeah, so we had a really good year. Do you just want to go back one slide, Savette? And I just wanted to mention that year to date, our total ground handling passengers, we're already at 94% this year for what we did in all of 2019. So yeah, we are hopping. Okay, now that our peak season is over, we are preparing for de-icing season. And I do not like the winter. But just quite simply, de-icing is a process of just removing the snow and ice or frost from the aircraft. We are completing the training right now for ABX Air, Allegiant, Atlas, Air Transport, which is ATI, Sun Country, and United. Not only do we have to do all the training, we have a lot of preseason audits and inspections throughout the year. In fact, right now, as I speak, Atlas Air is here doing an inspection. But I wanted to share a photo after the winter last year. We took our de-icing team to PJ's. Just wanted to thank them for, a safe season. They do a fantastic job. Of course, we wanted to have a little fun, so we picked the top 4, one's not shown here, de-icers for the season, who de-iced the most aircraft, and we got de-icing Hulk trophies. So we'll tell you they did like those. So, we'll do, in the next presentation, we'll dive in a little bit more on the de-icing, but, you know, certainly year-to-date, I think we de-iced 154 aircraft, and all of last year, we de-iced 157. So again, this is also another very busy department. All right, and then this summer, in March, we launched our Shuttle Service, which was a lot of fun, and we ran it during the busy weeks of each month, spring break, Easter. We did run it from May 16th all the way to September 5th for our peak season. And of course, we'll start it again October 6th and for the holidays. And if we need to extend that, if the lot fills up, we have a great team that are very flexible, a lot of retired employees, and we just give them a call and they come in early. So we're very lucky to have them. And we assisted about 10,000 customers since March. So I think it is very well received. Car jumps, I'm hoping this number goes down because nobody wants a dead battery. But year to date, we did help jump 86 cars versus 132 last year.
Is that all of last year or year to date?
Yeah, that's all of last year. So we'll see. I hope it's lower though, that number. Okay, so no surprise here. More passengers and more wheelchair requests. So our passenger services team year to date has handled 9,165 wheelchair requests. So a very important part of our business is to take care of, you know, anyone who needs a little extra assistance. So it's the highest value by 6% versus 2019. So it is trending to be a high month for assistance. And I guess worth mentioning is year to date, 2022 is the second highest passenger support. So I guess in other words, for all the passengers who travel through our airport, 1.47 of them request a wheelchair. So thank you, Shane, for preparing that for me. I appreciate that. Okay, and this is by far my favorite part of my job, and that is in collaboration with all the directors. This is definitely a team effort. I can't take all the credit, but our employee appreciation events. So year to date, we had Pizza Day, Soft Pretzel Day, Memorial Day, Independence and Labor Day. We always bring the Kona ice truck out for anyone who's working on those holidays. We had Ice Cream Day, Milkshake on the Move, and that's not a typo. That was the milkshake truck. They love the milkshakes. 2 weeks ago, we had Food Truck Friday, and I love the funnel cake, so we were so excited about that, and I think all the employees loved it, that we're gonna do the food trucks again for a fall picnic. And then we rented out in November the Roxy movie theater in Northampton, so we're gonna see the movie Top Gun together. And that's pretty much it. So every year, go to Todd and say, what about some money for employee events? But here's just some photos, and see, Shane, you made the PowerPoint. But so yeah, that's what we're up to in commercial services. And does anyone have any questions or anything I can? All right, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Yeah, Connie, just wanted to say the employee events, employee appreciation events are fantastic. We do them here at the bank as well. I know they're very well appreciated, and I'm sure I speak for most of the board, if not all. If you ever have a Take a Taco truck festival, let us know.
You missed it, John.
Yeah,
Sorry, we did it last year.
We did have that, John.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Well, then you know, I'm a little annoyed you didn't inform me.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Connie, appreciate it. Okay, next, we have a couple of discussion items in regard to evaluation. So we're going to go ahead and handle these in exec session. So I understand Elizabeth is not there. We did speak with her prior, and we did get clearance from her that evaluation processes regarding employees is, in her opinion, a proper topic for exec session. So I'd entertain a motion to move into exec.
So moved.
Second.
Yep. Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are out.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. We are out of exec session. Attorney Hines, can you review for the board the contents of the executive session?
The committee went to executive session to discuss evaluation on board counsel and to discuss solicitor performance review. The session was for informational purposes only, and no decision-making or voting was made during this session.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is new business. Does anyone have any new business they want to bring before the committee today? Okay, hearing none, exec session we have already had. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we've got a motion. We're done, everyone. I want to thank everyone. And a reminder that the board meeting next week is our annual nighttime meeting. So it starts at 5 o'clock, not noon, 5 o'clock at the airport. So we'll see everybody at 5 o'clock next week on Tuesday.